If you breed Neocaridinas, you will always be reminded of the instability in the genetics. There's a constant pop-up of genetic throwbacks and even mutations, and sometimes we discover them and sometimes we don't, and most of the time they are the reason why we have to select, take away, and sometimes discover them and enchant them. In many cases these throwbacks are so small that we don't even detect them. But if you have keen eyes and you study them, sometimes they stand out and you really notice them. And in this case, this might just be something. If you look at this shrimp, it's not your common yellow neon stripe. And the flank is more like a little bit chocolate color, even though she walks against white or very pale surface. And that's what I discovered, that a few female in my group of plus 200 adults started to stand out. They were darker in their flanks and even their limbs among my yellow neon stripe. And they were in the beginning looking just like this individual above. So I took the first generation of these odd, almost chocolate colored flanked females and took them out from the breeding group. And I separated them from each other and I placed them in different aquariums with different substrates and also in different lighting conditions to see if this had to do something with the substrate because Neocardinas are famous to adapt to the substrate. Say you have a dark substrate, they may darken. I also placed them in transparent bottom yeah, basically let them be in different surfaces to see if they would change back and lose this a little bit chocolate or brownish color on the flanks. I gave them the same food. I didn't use any males. I separated them I singled them out in the different aquariums, and I noticed them and studied them there for a few months. And nothing changed. A little obstacle because it turns out that only the females show this trait, so the males stayed ordinary. So when I bred them to see if I could reproduce this, I had to use normal colored males to these females. And I found out that these females produced a certain percent replicas of themselves. So I basically took that offspring and kept the males out of it that got a little bit darker and repeated the breeding back to their mothers. And then I saw a stronger outcome, both in percent and in the color itself. And this is when I knew I was really into something, something that I could possibly build on. And if you look close, this is a few generations further. And you can see, first you saw one individual and there you see another one centered. That stands out pretty well. And you can really see that they are not your typical yellow neon stripe. And here we have one adult female zoomed in. Now she's on dark surface, but still it doesn't matter. You can also see on her limbs, on her legs, that they are not yellow colored. They are actually a little bit chocolate colored as well. And as I said before, look close at the limbs. Look at the legs. So you can see the pigment very clearly. It's not the yellow legs that you really want on a perfect neon stripe. So when you find an individual that stands out, sometimes we call it the odd freak. And you see the same individual regardless of changing environment or over time, and the trait remains. That is a clear indication that you have something that stands out. Most of the time, like I said, we will see this as a flaw and we'll take it away out of the gene pool. But sometimes when it's appealing to us, we choose to try to make the gene come forward and dominate. And that's what I'm trying on the process doing with these ones right now. The wild type of Neocaridina is nothing like the strains we have created, and therefore the shrimp itself, if you let it be and you don't do much with them, they will always strive to go back to their color of origin. So therefore, in many lines that are often of very new kinds of lines, not many years since creation, there's a lot of instability. And therefore there is room and there will be a lot of changes and that's why we need to constantly look at them close by so that they stay and don't lose the traits that we want or the colors that we want. As you can see by these two females arguing around, you can clearly see the difference between a normal Neocaridina, yellow neon stripe, and this one. It's a quite striking difference, I would say, and that's why I want to separate them. And I find this chocolate variation quite appealing. I don't want to take anything away from the original, but I think they are worth to try to separate out to a new line, and I think they also could have a place. I think people would find them attractive, as I do. So the challenge for me is to get them stable, get the genetics dominant, so I can produce this type on a dominant base. This should be the rule, and the odd freak should then be back to the original yellow neon stripe. And to reach consistency, it will take a lot of time. It's not done just in 1 or 2 generations. I think to get where I want to, it will take at least 6 to 8 generations. And even then, I'm not sure I will have full stability, but that is of course the goal. And then when you have stability of the trait, the chocolate flank, you will have to start to select them by the type or the most intense or the best ones, the most striking, and also looking at the ridge. Then you have to start going for the details within the strain. And I really want to highlight this individual that is a few leaps forward, how you can see the difference to the standard animal to the right, and that in this stage I think they look very different from each other. You can see it on the color of the ridges, and you can see it on the flanks, and you can even see in the eyes that you have lighter eyes on the new strain than you have the darker eyes on the original yellow neon stripe. And to me they appear as if they were 2 different separated shrimps, but they have the same origin. Actually, these guys have the same genetics, only that I have manipulated the one behind to get as dark as possible. And the one in the front I have manipulated to get as much ridge defined as possible and as much yellow, deep yellow color as possible. And also looking at the limbs, that specimen is not perfect, but it's a quite good ambassador for an original yellow neon stripe. And also this specimen of my new line is quite a good specimen of what I would say is a good base. Something that if I could produce these type constantly, I would be quite pleased to start work with them and refine them even more. And of course, for me, this is one of the good, nice thrills about having Neocaridinas, because there's a lot of effort to manipulate and modify Caridina shrimps, but I think the Neocaridinas has long been overseen, but they have many interesting things that people have not appreciated or not taken notice of. And I think there's a huge source, and there's going to be a lot of variation coming up and stabilized in time. Michael, for example, in Michael Hessler, shrimpify.eu in Germany, he has enchanted the orange eyes in several lines now and stabilized it. And this is just the start of modifications.